I've found, and I did this for a large portion of my life, I tied my future happiness is tied to an expected dollar amount. And when I make that dollar amount, I will finally be happy, or I will finally be free. And what I found is that wasn't true. At least in my experience, it wasn't. I'm not going to pay you more than if I can go get that exchange of value from someone else willing to do the same responsibilities and the same things. And so sometimes you can create value by thinking, okay, how could I bring more value to my boss? How can I create that value even before creating a pay raise?
You've been an example of this to me and helped me just normalize my conversations even around money. So many people don't even want to talk about it. And it's crazy how we psychologically tie like our worth, our status, our value to some financial number.
Welcome to the Everyday Leader Podcast. Leadership is a choice. Join me, Matt, and my co-hosts Drew and Tate each episode as we break down how to lead powerfully in your family, team, and organization.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Everyday Leader Podcast. Today, Drew and I are going to talk about a topic that is probably a little bit uncomfortable for some people. And maybe you haven't even realized how uncomfortable it is for you. And so it'll be really useful. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about our perception of and relationship with money. And excited to hear particularly what Drew has to share around this, and love your perspective on this. So yeah, tell us a little bit about like what you had texted me last week, or like what's been on your mind around this idea of our relationship with money.
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of context. I sent Matt a text that said something like, dude, money is not even real. Something to that effect. And with my partners, we just invested a lot of money to hire a coach. And whenever you do that, there's always this feeling of like, oh, can I afford this? How am I going to come up with this? And
Is the ROI going to be there?
Yeah. Sure enough, for me, it was a 5-second decision. Like when I when I realized what I thought he could do for us, and what it might look like. And anyways, I just was like, yep, let's do it. I'll figure it out. And we did. And it's funny because it's like, sometimes you talk about how you can't do stuff because of money and everything. So much of our human existence is around money. And there's a lot of anxiety that people have, lots of stress. A lot of the decisions we make every day is tied back to money. And just the thought was like, hey, this is a priority to me. So the money doesn't matter and we'll figure it out. Like,
yeah. Well, and so for those of you who don't know Drew super well, this is how I've experienced him over the last several years. And we joke about this sometimes, right? That like, and using the word like irresponsible or, something like that. Right. And I can see why it could be viewed that way easily by someone from the outside. Like, wow, that is like such an irresponsible decision or an irresponsible thing to do. And I've never experienced that way. I've always experienced it in a very abundant way, that like Drew is willing to just take action and invest in things that matter. And then, yeah, it is like, I'll figure it out. And guess what? He always figures it out. Like, we got years of evidence of this. And even like on the episode with your wife, right? She even said like, he always figures it out. So it really is like, you've been a great example to me of just like having a clear understanding, like, being clear about like what kind of life you want and who you are, and then just taking action in an abundant way and just figure it out. It's actually really inspiring. Like I've been the beneficiary to go on trips with you too, where it's like, I don't know why I'm even coming. Probably is, could be irresponsible, and like, let's go. And then like we go have a great experience.
We're texting about the number of trips that cost us probably $1,000 just to go do something. We're like, we don't even know if this is worth, like, we're doing it for work or business or for some opportunity. And it's like, we don't, 1,000 sometimes the cheap end, but but hey, like how many times have I just been like, I'm going on this trip, I book it, I'll go. I don't even know if it's worth it, like from the ROI standpoint. Right. And it's like, well, but we're going to go create something. We're going to create some relationships. And I've also seen a lot of those things that I went and did. We've talked about culmination, have created things sometimes 2-3 years later that I'm like, I'm glad I, hey, years ago decided to sponsor this event when I wasn't sure if I could buy groceries next week. Like, and 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 that might sound funny too, because like, as an entrepreneur, it's like you could be making lots of money and still be broke.
Yeah.
Coming in, have big expenses and overhead, and it's interesting just to see. Like sometimes we think we get to a certain dollar amount, all the problems around money go away, and that's also not true. It's like I've talked to so many entrepreneurs that, man, I'm making millions of dollars a year, and there's months I'm not sure how I'm going to make payroll, how I'm going to pay a $100,000 payroll this week because accounts receivable haven't come in and things haven't happened. And so I wanted to kind of talk about this today because I just see so many people in pain around money, and I would love to say I'm completely free of pain around money. There's still some work to be done for me, and I've done a lot of work the last few years to disattach myself from the feelings that often I have had accompanied when it comes to talking about money, when it comes to spending money, when it comes to deciding what I'm going to do in my life because of money. Like I don't know how many people I talk to every week that are like, I can't leave my job because the money's too good. And if I walk away from it, like they're telling me how miserable every day of their life is because they're at. And it's so anyways, I could like start ranting pretty easy on this. And once you like understand what money is, and I think what school tells us, what the world tells us money is, and what it actually is are two different things. So maybe we'll dive into that a little bit, Matt.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one other thing real quick, like, and you, again, you've been an example of this to me and helped me just normalize my conversations even around money. Like you said, so many people don't even want to talk about it. And it's crazy how we psychologically tie like our worth, our status, our value to some financial number. And it's like, no, okay, like let's just start like that's nothing to do with that, right? And what if you just did the work to like have a relationship with money that was more useful and that it was like mathematical even. Like I've
Yeah.
seen that transition for me over the last year or so where it's like instead of like hiding behind it or just like ignoring it, it's like how about just mathematically have a conversation with someone who knows about it and like see what you can do to like get on a good path or create or like just feel like you have a plan or you know what I mean? Just like getting that stuff out in the open has been so useful to just talk about it, even just from a math standpoint, instead of like ignore it, suppress it. I'm embarrassed or I'm like not measuring up, so I don't even want to bring it up. Those have all been super useful. And again, Drew's helped me see that a lot. I mean, maybe I've never even told you that before. So
Well, it's funny as you bring that up. I just thought about. I went through some sales training a couple years ago, and the trainer referenced a study that uh, I think it was Stanford, and I can't remember if they hooked like people up to monitors,
monitors, I think they did.
measuring their brain activity and brain waves, and they put all these terrible, horrible things in front of people: pornography, like
Drugs. Yeah.
execution, drugs, like all these simulated scenarios to let people see or think about. And the one that triggered the greatest response was money. And so money created the biggest response. And there's so much fear that we have around it. And I think it's helpful to realize where it comes from, how it works, how we can create it, how we can be stewards of it, and realize it's not like you're not living as a leader, you're not living abundantly, you're not living your best life if everything comes back down to like, can I do this or not because of money? And you might be hearing that being like, but Drew, I literally have $100 in my bank account this week. Like I can't do some things because I don't have enough money. So I want to just talk about that. So I like to just, and this is like, okay, if you'll bear with me, if you're a listener, this might be the part where your eyes will glaze over as I just take 30 seconds to a minute to talk through this. But one thing that has been really interesting is as I've listened to thought leaders and people talk about money, I've come to realize like one, And I don't know, I think we have some listeners outside of the US. I don't know who they are, but there's data that shows we have them. So I'm going to just speak to the US dollar because that's what we know and what's most relatable to us. But the US dollar isn't money. It's a piece of paper that is a debt tool that pays the government for taxes. So all the dollar is the exchange we can use to pay taxes to the government. So I just want to like say that for a second and think about it, because like when I first heard that, like I never thought, like that kind of like made my head blow up a little bit inside. Like, oh, it's not really money. It's like the government needs us to pay taxes and there has to be a way to exchange value. And so the US dollar is what they use to pay that. So everything we do, the reason our whole entire economy does it is we trust the government. And so it's really a piece of paper of trust that a debt will be paid. And so all that is knowing that the government will alleviate us of the tax that we're owed by giving them those dollars. So anyways, like that, you might be hearing that and like, okay, where's Drew going with this? This is off his rocker, or he's off his rocker a little bit. But like you start thinking about that and it's like if that's all that is, where does it come from? Well, money or the dollar comes from creating value in the world. So when you go out and create value, that's just the exchange that we use, that we all trust in our society. And this could like turn into a Bitcoin conversation or really easy, and I don't intend for that. And that's another topic with other experts. But it's like all money is like we just value this and we trust that, hey, if you give me $5, Matt, I know I can go exchange that $5 for something of an equal value. And so creating money is really about creating value in the world. And so what I've also learned, if I can create value, I can create money very quickly for myself or for others. And so back to that conversation of like, sometimes I feel like money's not even real. I'm like told, hey, to coach with me, it's going to be tens of thousands of dollars, or to make this investment work, it's going to be X amount of dollars. And if it's like, I see, hey, if I can figure out how to come up with that, I'll do it. Then it's like, my brain just starts working of how can I create X amount of dollars to go get what I want. And so, all right, maybe I need to stop for a second because I feel like I'm going to start rambling, Matt. But...
No, that's so good. I mean, a couple of things to pull from that, right? And I feel like one of the main things that is so useful to take on as a belief and as a leader is that the focus is creating value. Money just happens to be the exchange, the unit, the currency that's used for that transfer of value. And a focus on value will make you more money, and then a focus on money will make you money, which is a very different way to look at it. And I think that's huge, right? And even just like from a being fulfilled, right? If we want to tie this back into like, what are you building and how are you showing up like a leader? When you're focused on creating value, then you're going to be more fulfilled, because that's like literally what creates fulfillment and joy is like, well, I just built something that's valuable to someone else. So I love that. And tell us a little bit more about like, okay, right, I'm listening to this and I'm like, but like what? Like sometimes it just feels so far away from like what's possible. It's like, what? How do I create value and have it turn into money?
Yeah. So I would tell people, just because I could spend 20 minutes talking about this, but go, if you want to read a couple great books about money, go read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and go read the Cash Flow Quadrant. The Cash Flow Quadrant talks about there's 4 ways you can make money as an employee, self-employed, a business owner, or an investor. And that specifically relates to how cash flows. But like if you're an employee, the way you create value is you show up and you give your time in exchange for money. Like your time is valuable to an employer and they need someone to do a task or a series of responsibilities. And so essentially you're trading. And so sometimes there's limitations on what you can make at your job, because if you can't add additional value, like why
would
would
it be recognized, right? Or have it be, yeah.
Then it's, I'm not going to pay you more than if I can go get that exchange of value from someone else willing to do the same responsibilities and the same things. And so sometimes you can create value by thinking, okay, how could I bring more value to my boss? And sometimes that's like, how can I create that value even before creating a pay raise? Like talked to several guys this year who've, hey, I had a better job offer. I talked about, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And next thing I know, I'm getting a pay raise because we talked about how we can change my roles and responsibilities to be more valued to my employer. Right. But how do I create value? I remember this being shared with me. Actually, it was a training from as I was a young missionary, and a church leader was training on this. But he said a problem is a gold mine, and it's stuck with me ever since. Like, if you can find a problem and you can solve that problem for people, you can create massive value. And then it just becomes, how many people can I create value for? Either I can create a lot of value for one person and charge a lot, or because the value is so great, make a lot of money. Or it's like, hey, if I could provide a little bit of value to massive amounts of people, that can create lots of money, so to speak. So oftentimes, if you're sitting on the couch, like at home right now, listening to this, and you wish you had a little more money in your pocket, it's like, well, how could you go out and create value in the world? Like, people talk about their side hustles all the time. It's like, hey, I go out and see a problem, I find an opportunity, and I solve it. And if I can go solve that for people, maybe that's flipping couches. Like, someone's got a couch they need to get rid of. I'll give them money that solves their problem. I turn around and find someone who needs a couch, and I sell it for more. Like, and that's just like a very, very small, minimal example. And I've seen people create, like, I mean, I've talked to people that it's like they go out and they sell a solution before they've even created it. Like, they find a problem for a business. Oh, I can fix that. They sell it, and then they go back and, hey, now I'm going to, with software,
create the solution.
Yeah. Or with whatever, create the solution. And so it's really just about, can I be curious? Can I ask questions? Can I identify problems? Can I solve those problems? And you create value very quickly when you can figure out how to solve problems.
Yeah. So one thought along those lines is, like, even the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Great book to help you think differently. I think sometimes people get hung up on, like, well, do you follow the whatever? It's like, read that book just to have yourself think differently, because it will help you do that, right? And there's lots of things out there like that it's like, you don't have to become like some strict, like, I follow this only plan, right? And it's like, either I'm all Dave Ramsey or I'm all Rich Dad Poor Dad or whatever. It's like, no, read those things to have yourself just be more open to asking different questions and thinking about, well, what else could be possible? And that is the other thing, right? Like, we talk about all the time, leadership is a choice. You always have a choice. So that's at the foundation of all of this, is that, like, let's say you don't want to do real estate. Cool, don't do real estate. Let's say you don't want to flip couches. Like, right, just remind yourself that you always have a choice. So what I'm getting at is, like, be open to other possibilities. Ask yourself better questions, like Richie Norton always says, and get better answers. Like, ask yourself questions that you haven't asked before, to consider different possibilities you've never considered before. And yeah, remind yourself you always have a choice. So this isn't about, like, go do something wacky, or like you have to do this to, in fact, the opposite is true. Like, find what you want to do that creates value, and then do more of that.
Yeah. And you can have what you prioritize. Like, I kind of mentioned this already, Matt. Like, I talk to so many people that are just miserable at their job. And so it's like, all right, is it really money that you want? Or is it that you just don't want to be miserable every day? Like, and if you don't want to be miserable, it's like, okay, then leave the job. Well, if I leave the job, I'm going to make less money. Okay. And
You
like,
have your priorities. Yeah.
care about the money, make it a priority, and go figure out how to create and solve a problem. That doesn't, and sometimes to do that, you don't, like, sometimes that means quitting your job and doing something drastic. Sometimes that means, hey, I'm going to make a plan, and I'm going to start creating value where I'm at so I can exit this at some point. And to your point, Matt, you always have a choice. It's like, if the money's important for certain reasons, like, hey, this is going to provide the house we want, or it's giving us the lifestyle we want that's important to us, then choose that.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit, Matt, but I think the other thing I kind of wanted to get into with this idea that money's not real is, like, we talked about it briefly for a moment, but so often we tie, and we kind of talked about this in the last episode, but we tie happiness to things, or like, what is happiness? And I've found, and I did this for a large portion of my life, I tied my future happiness is tied to an expected dollar amount. And when I make that dollar amount, I will finally be happy, or I will finally be free. And what I found is that wasn't true. At least in my experience, it wasn't. And I just share that because sometimes I think we look at money as like the title, like, hey, someone has made it if they've made X amount of dollars. And then you talk to someone making millions a year and they're one of the most miserable people you ever find. Or and look, I think there's a place for, if I want to learn how to make money, I'd probably rather go to someone who's made a lot of money to teach me that. But just because they've made a lot of money, like, that doesn't mean they're the person that can teach you other things in your life.
Well, yeah. And on the flip side of that, right? Sometimes it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's easy for a couple broke guys on the internet to say like, oh, all those people that have made a lot of money are unhappy. So just to be clear, like Drew and I both want to make a lot of money. It's just not tied to our happiness. And that took years to figure out. Like, yeah, we totally want to make more money, and we're not waiting for that to be happy, to be present, to be free, to like experience the joy that's all around us. So I think that's a key distinction. I love and I think you've talked about this before, Drew, like money's a multiplier, or I've heard it even as like money's an amplifier. So like, it's a great way to think of it. It's like, if you are a person that wants to create value, then making more money will amplify your ability to do that, or whatever it is. And so anyways, I love that distinction there that you're bringing up, that it's not tied, like happiness isn't tied to money, and yet make lots of money.
I talk about this idea a lot too, that like, when you want more, you can serve more. If you want to serve more people, you have to want bigger things than others want. And there's nothing wrong with wanting more. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make lots of money. And if you tie your happiness to the amount of money you make, like, that's, in my experience, is a recipe for disaster for most people. I've very seldom talked to someone that's like, hey, I was happy when I finally made X amount of dollars. Now, I will say, you get to a certain amount of money and that can eliminate certain problems in your life. Hey, I'm not worried about car breaking down, or I'm not worried about, like, I've heard it talked about that, uh, $1,000 emergency fund, that, like, it's not that big of a deal once you're making enough money where $1,000 isn't that big of a deal anymore. Right. And all that to be said, like, you can choose to be happy whether you're broke or whether you're making millions of dollars. Like, what are you prioritizing in your life, and what helps you sleep well at night? Like, if to make a lot of money, you've got to work 20 hours a day and never be around your wife and your family and your kids, and it's put strains on your marriage and your relationships, is that worth it? Do you sleep good at night? Right? Or if you can sleep good at night, I don't think Matt and I aren't 9-to-5ers. And if you can sleep good at night, working a 9-to-5 job, and live on a budget that suits your lifestyle, and you can sleep well because you're able to show up and be present for your kids' games, and be a coach, and have the date nights each week, and you don't mind the job, that's great too. Like, but if you're tying the happiness to, like, I'll be happy when I can get to retirement, or I'll be happy when I make X amount of dollars, like, no, like, choose to be happy now, and just realize, like, hey, the money, that can be something useful, and I can make a game around it that can be fun to play.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And look, there's so much truth in like what you're saying, Drew, that money can also be a great tool. It can also be a great reliever of some issues, right? And not all, and some, yes, right? So, and you always have a choice, right? I think at the end of the day, around this conversation, I just don't want people to lie to themselves.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, if you're miserable in your current situation, or you don't love it, or you don't feel like you choose it, I want you to choose something different. If you do, fantastic. Then, like, love it, choose it. It's great, right? And be open, like we said before, to new possibilities. Like, what if there's things you don't know? Like, what if there's questions to be asked that you haven't asked before? I mentioned earlier, and I will leave this as an invitation to like work to normalize your conversations around money with your spouse, with a financial advisor, with whoever, like just to stop hiding behind it like it's some taboo thing you can't talk about, and just even pull it out into the open and have a relationship with it that's mathematical and that's functional, and that will serve you. Curious your thoughts, Drew. Like what would you say to someone who wants to have a different relationship with money? Maybe this has brought up some things like, what can someone do to improve and have a more useful and healthy relationship with money?
Go spend a little bit. No.
Yeah.
But to
That's
that point,
that is part of abundance though, right? Is that like
yeah,
money coming in and money going out, like being grateful for both, right?
yeah.
And yeah, be wise.
I, I think a lot of things can start with just education. Like, for example, abundance has become part of what I'm doing. It's like on the logo of the hat Matt and I are wearing today. That started by taking a class through the church with a now business partner, where we took a self-reliance class and just realized some things about money and abundance that was possible for us. And so I've found, here's like, this could get me ranting, and I know we were going to keep this to 25 minutes and we're at that point, Matt, but it's crazy to me how much money is spent on useless education in college. And I'm not saying all of it's useless, and there's a lot of it I believe is. And how many people will roll your eyes when you say, I'm going to spend a few $100s on a course to teach me about money, or I'm going to go spend $10,000 to learn how to do real estate and actually be able to create money after you do it. Like, I just think there are people that can teach you about money. There are free options and there's paid things. And often the free stuff's great. The paid stuff gets you there quicker. But go invest in yourself. Go learn a little about money. Go spend $5 on a good book about money. The Psychology of Money, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Killing Sacred Cows. Those are just all a few great books about money that will maybe help you change some of your beliefs. And then go work with a professional. And I'll say this too, like, just because somebody has a professional designation doesn't mean they're an expert at money either. Like, what do they do? What's their lifestyle look like? Like, I wouldn't go to, somebody that I want them to teach me about money if they can't show me what they're doing with money either. And at the same time, it's like, you can, you brought up Richie Norton already. Richie Norton talks about, like, if you want, I'm going to butcher how he says it. Maybe you can correct it, Matt, but he talks about, like, if you want to change your life, change the way you're paid. Like, the way you make money impacts the way you're able to live your life. And so if you make money by working for somebody else, you just know there's like, hey, I'm only going to get paid time off this amount a year, and these are the constraints I'm going to have. And if I'm okay with that, great. And if I don't like that, then I've got to figure out a different way to get paid. So
yep.
I don't know if that answers your question, Matt, but
yeah, no, that's so good. I just, again, like, take action, take responsibility, make a choice, educate yourself. I love that. Like, there's tons of resources out there, and you named a few. So if you're wondering, like, well, there's too many options, we'll start with some of the ones Drew mentioned. He's obviously vetted them and, experienced good things from them. So it's a great place to start.
Yeah. And last thing I'll say, Matt, is if all the decisions in your life you feel like are coming down to money, like, get curious about that. Like, if I'm making decisions every day based on me saying I can afford that or I can't, that in my experience isn't fun. And if you're making decisions based on whether you don't afford it, like, change the question a little bit, change the narrative. Like, what if instead of asking, can I afford this, I ask what's most important to me? And then I figure out if that's most important to me, how to get that or how to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Okay. Awesome. This has been so good. Take a look at your relationship with money. Ask different questions, increase, like, your awareness to it, have conversations around it that maybe used to be uncomfortable or are uncomfortable for you. And those are great places to start. Educate yourself, find good resources. There's tons of them out there, and be a leader. Today's the day.
Thanks for joining us on the Everyday Leader podcast. If you're ready to take your leadership journey even further, subscribe to our weekly newsletter for more insights and practical tips. And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram to stay a part of our growing community. Just follow the links in the show notes. If this episode impacted you, please help us spread the word and share the link with a friend from wherever you're listening.